Alright everyone, what's up? I'm Crawf1sh and this is Battle for Bikini Bottom 90%. I'm joined here with Jack and Flux.
Yo,
Hello.
what's up? Yeah, 90% run today. This is a coronavirus really fun stream, just so you guys remember. And then just like if you wanted to donate, just exclamation point donate in the chat to get the link to it. And yeah.
Perfect. Alright.
Right on.
Alright,
Good to
I'm
go?
gonna timing starts when I hit yes on the save game selection. So 3, 2, 1. Nope.
And we're off.
Easy
Dog.
money.
Yeah.
All right, so this is BFBB any percent. It's pretty self-explanatory. We are just beating the game as fast as possible. The only restriction is we cannot use cheat codes. Everything else is fair game.
Yeah, and we mentioned that because there are a few categories like New Game Plus and 100% Plus where you like are able to enter in the Bubble Bowl and Cruise Bubble codes so that you
Right.
can do anything throughout the whole run. But yeah, any percent, just no restrictions.
Yeah, so basically what it boils down to is the final boss requires us to collect 75 spatulas in order to enter. So there are 100 spatulas in the game. We kind of just pick out the 75 fastest, grab those, and then head into the final boss to complete the game.
Right at the beginning, we're going to be disabling Hans, which is probably the most important glitch in the run. It's going to allow us to go into a bunch of out-of-bounds areas that would typically get grabbed.
Yeah. Basically, so this hand that grabs you, he usually grabs you when you enter certain out-of-bounds areas, but what happens is if you enter a stage while he's in the process of grabbing you, then the game kind of just thinks he's still grabbing you, and it effectively won't come out the next time you go out of bounds because it thinks it's already out, essentially.
Yeah, notably, if you try to go on the sand, you're still going to get grabbed. You will still get grabbed unless you get the save game glitch, where the save game icon's stuck on the screen. But it's more so useful for like this spatula right here at Cowabungie, where I can just jump down and get the spatula, which typically the hand would grab me and prevent me from doing this.
Right.
Yeah, out of bounds is like such a huge trick in the game. Like I feel like a lot of people just kind of forget like all the tricks that we wouldn't be able to do without it. Like, insane.
Yes. Especially because like any percent, you just disable the hand and then that's it. Like,
Let's go. First try RSS.
oh, first try RSS, let's go.
all right, we didn't even get a chance to introduce that trick. That's actually a very difficult trick. Craw made it look easy, but yeah, you're basically jumping through a hole in the map and doing a fairly tight jump to ledge grab the other side. This is a pretty huge sequence break because it allows us to access the later stages very early, which allows us to get some very fast spatulas before we unlock the power-ups.
Yeah, and that saves about a minute over the old method of like skipping over Poseidon without Bubble Bowl or Cruise Bubble, where you would just basically like walk around the out of bounds like of downtown, like the downtown buildings in the back of Bikini Bottom. But that would take like over a minute to walk around
Right.
to get to the same spot. So RSS really streamlines that.
For sure.
That was a really fast rollbuck. That's another sequence break where it gets you to the area 3.
Yeah, so what we're doing right now is that first stage we entered was Jellyfish Fields. We're actually going to go back here now, I assume. The reason that we break it up right now is so we can get these tougher tricks out of the way. It doesn't really lose much time at all to do it this way.
Yeah, loses 2 frames optimally.
Yeah. So, so we're back to Jellyfish Fields. We're going to get a couple more spatulas here. This is a very big level, so we're going to come back and do most of it in late game when we have a movement tech called Cruise Boosting unlocked, which is going to allow us to move a lot faster, which you'll be seeing a lot of that later on. We'll kind of talk more about it once we get to that point.
Yeah.
So this is a fun trick called Hammer Skip.
Very fun.
We're trying... Yeah, I hate this trick personally, but I'm bad at it. So
Yeah, you like...
Or go ahead, Jack.
Oh, sorry, Jack.
Okay, so basically you manipulate the robot to get up on the rock, and then you jump from the robot's head into the goo. Then the goo bounces you up to where you were standing on top of the robot's head, and you can kind of do a double jump to hit an invisible checkpoint. And then after that, you drown, and it kind of just puts you up there.
Yeah, if you're good, you can get a 1-frame jump where you input a jump on the first frame between your damage animation and your falling animation. You can get a ledge grab and skip that, but I didn't get it there, but it doesn't lose a lot of time to not get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few 1-frames like that in the game where like right after an animation, like the first frame, you can do an input or like an extra input, which you can use to get to like higher ledges, which you'll see in GlobalGiving when Crawf1sh gets tower sock. I assume tower sock.
No,
when you run,
you don't get the 1-frame stock in any percent.
Yeah, that's
that's
okay,
then.
that sock used to be in no SBA, but in a 20 sock route, it's actually not fast enough.
Oh, okay. Then I guess my route's just weird.
I mean, it's not like a terrible sock, but...
Yeah. Ooh, that's the spinless dilemma skip. You gotta love it.
I find spinless easier, honestly.
Yeah, I don't usually spin there either.
I used to spin, but then like ever since I stopped spinning, it's become like not a reset point anymore.
Alright, so now we're heading into SpongeBob's Dream. So this is kind of the reason that we do all those big sequence breaks at the start, is it allows us to enter this level, which is actually supposed to be one of the last levels you enter, but for one reason or another, it doesn't have a spatula requirement tied to it. So we can just enter it here at the beginning, and it gives us access to a lot of very fast spatulas. And by doing this, it allows us to move, specifically it allows us to move the downtown level to later. And downtown is a very large level with a lot of movement. So again, that's where cruise boosting is going to come into play. By moving that level to late game, we save a lot of time.
Yeah, and then just like Dream, as you can see, like we just go get into slide skip to get the really fast spat on top of Squid's house, and then you can do oil skip right after that to get across the dreamscape.
Yeah, so like what really sets this level apart is how fast you can get these spatulas without either of the major power-ups unlocked. So basically there are two big power-ups we get. We get the Bubble Bowl from fighting Robot Sandy in the Poseidon, and then the Cruise Bubble from fighting Robot Patrick in Industrial Park. And those are going to help us out a lot later on, but we actually can do a lot in this stage without them, is why it's such a powerhouse in early game.
Yeah, now this is a pretty large sequence break, like within the level for Sandy's Dream. Once you have Hans disabled, you can actually jump over straight to the acorn. And there's a little trigger inside, or like in the top of the acorn, where you can actually like death warp to where the spatula is, which basically skips out on this extremely long slide level. It makes it a really fast spatula for most of the categories.
Yeah.
Basically all of the categories.
Well, yeah, well, there's some categories where we have an even faster way to do it, but it's a lot harder, so we still, most people still do this.
The ledge grab.
Sick ledge grab.
Well, yeah, as you can see, the death warp.
Yeah.
I'm just glad I didn't lose 2 minutes to early game. That was the thing I was most worried about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this is a really clean early game, gotta say.
So early game, like, aside from those two big sequence breaks, the tricks aren't like necessarily that difficult, but they lose a lot of time if you miss them. So it can still be a big reset point, just because basically missing anything can kill a run, depending on, of course, how good your time is.
Or your willingness to reset, because you know you could just like lose a minute to Sandy's Dream and just be like, keep going.
Yeah, that's why you saw me jumping a lot for that checkpoint there. I did not want to lose a minute for Sandy's
Dream. That's the marathon strat, to be honest.
It really is.
All right, so go ahead, Jack.
Oh no, I was gonna make a comment. Like I think my record is 10 seconds, like jumping it for Sandy's Dream and then just like not getting it. It was pretty poggers.
That's rough. Alright, so we're headed into GlobalGiving. So this is actually going to be another one of the biggest sequence breaks we have. This is a trick known as sponge gliding, which you'll see why it's called that. It's pretty self-explanatory, but Basically what this is going to allow us to do is it lets us skip to the very end of this level, which allows us to do everything backwards, which saves a ton of time, as you'll be able to see.
This may take me a couple tries, though.
Yeah, this trick, it's a little precise on the setup. Oh, there we go.
Second try, let's go.
Not bad.
Notably, this is an example of why we need the hand disabled. We couldn't get to this island normally if we had the hand enabled. So that's a big reason why you have this.
And the ETG bash, nice. And then the second sponge glide. That one you can actually like get stuck on if you go too high and ground pound. And we call it a soft lock. It isn't a soft lock, but
it's
like,
kind of a fake soft lock, yeah.
Yeah.
You
gotta like
force you to
reload.
reload and loses minutes, though.
Yeah,
Still sucks.
for sure. Yeah, so the reason that doing the level backwards is so much faster is kind of what you just saw, how Crawf1sh just jumped straight into that box and skipped this entire area. So there are these teleport boxes, which the game tells you have to unlock both of them to use them, but in the vast majority of cases, you actually only have to open the second one. So for big areas like this, a lot of times we can enter from the back and jump straight into the box, and it takes us to the front. We skip the whole area.
You're going to see the sea caves, and you're going to see that with the top of the castle. The lagoon's completely broken just from us doing this glide here.
Yeah, and so like this spatula that Crawf1sh just got in the sea caves, you're supposed to go through this whole area and do a bunch of platforming to get to this, but since we just enter through the back entrance, it's just right there. We basically skip the whole thing. And we're going to do that. There are a couple other levels where we exploit that later on in the run.
Kelp Forest is a big example
of
that.
And Rock Bottom to a lesser extent. Just because how we enter the back of Trench.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's great with Kelp because the entrance to the final slide is literally right at the start of the level. Like,
yeah.
They didn't foresee anyone getting there for some reason.
Yeah. So the thing you're going to be noticing, if you haven't already, is there's very little we do in this run as intended. It's a very exploitable, just broken game.
You said that at the worst time, though.
Yeah, that's fair. And that is the segue into the Robot Sandy fight, where one of the few things we do as intended, which is unfortunately, it's slow and boring, unfortunately, but there's not much we can do about it.
There's technically ways to skip this with a cruise boost. However, the thing is, it wouldn't even matter if we were able to skip it without a cruise boost, because if skipping it would get us the spatula below here by clipping under the arena, and that affects the hub, unlocks things, takes down the barrier. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't play the cutscene at the end of the fight, which is the most important part because that gives us the bubble bowl, and the bubble bowl is really important for this run.
Yeah, well, so basically, there's this fight and the Robot Patrick fight, which between them are like 7.5 to 8 minutes. It is technically possible to beat the game without doing either of them, but the power-ups we get from them save so much time that it completely offsets the time that we actually spend doing the fights and then some.
Yeah, there's actually like a whole category kind of around that focus for like SpongeBob only. It's crazy that it's like theoretically possible for someone to do it, but it's never been done single segment.
No, 4 did it.
I thought he got to like 76 or 75 spatulas and wasn't able to do the last one.
I'm pretty sure he did, because I mean you can definitely do brain if you make it that far.
Yeah,
it's a pain, but you can do it.
Yeah. It's either you clip in, because you have to basically do the brain by clipping into it with crazy stuff, but without a cruise bubble or bubble bowl, it's either you clip in with the first 5 seconds or it takes you a couple hours to clip in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just, you kind of just throw yourself in there and hope you clip without the intangibility you get from the cruise bubble.
Yeah, I guess I thought that like they were still stuck on Mermalair, like trying to climb up like to the top of it as SpongeBob, like RTA.
I'm not sure if they ever got past that, but they did manage to find 75 RTA viable spatulas.
Yeah, I know before it used to be pretty much task only, but we found VMS a couple months ago, and that shook up a lot of that stuff there.
Yeah, for sure. VMS was a game changer.
Only in challenge runs though, pretty much.
Yeah. For sure, and all level spats.
Yeah, if you're crazy.
For, you know, 4 people that run that, or have run that.
And it is technically fast in the 16% route. Also,
Oh, is it?
Actually?
It saves like 6 seconds, but yeah, I'm definitely not going for it unless I get quick slick.
Yeah, for sure.
But since we're in Poseidon, I might as well just say that we got a $5 donation from Neo Context with a heart.
Oh, let's do
Neo.
it, yeah.
Shout outs to Neo.
Thank you very much, Neo.
Actually,
yeah, so,
we were playing bingo the other day with Neo. That was pretty hype.
True.
Yeah.
So now that we're out of the robot standing fight, this is kind of a good time to talk about the routing in this game. You've kind of seen how we kind of dip into levels and then leave before we've done everything. The reason that we split levels up like that is because, as you can see here, Crawf1sh has unlocked this bowling ball move. This power-up is going to allow us to do a lot of things that we couldn't do in early game. So there are some levels that we, visit in early game, but then we return to here in the mid-game section because this power-up is going to allow us to do some new things. Most notably, Ski Ball Abuse and Goo Lagoon, which you're going to see here shortly.
Yeah, this trick literally caused a split in the categories just because of how much it changed up the route for any percent.
And this trick's gone through a ton of phases too. It was when it first came out, it was not even close to the same as it is right now.
Yeah, when it first came out, it was actually just an awful trick. Nobody wanted it in the game, but we've found ways to optimize it to make it less excruciating, and now it's actually I think the majority consensus is that it's made the game a lot better overall.
Yeah, and it's definitely been one of the biggest showcases of a community effort around a trick because there's just been so many people working on optimizing it.
For sure, yeah. So yeah, for those who haven't seen this, I'm going to give a volume warning. This trick is a bit loud. It's not going to start for a little bit still, so... but basically, you see Crawf1sh walking towards the skee ball machine. So the idea is what you're supposed to do, the idea of this skee ball machine is SpongeBob can throw the bowling ball into it, and it goes in holes, and it earns you shiny objects. What we do is we lodge 2 stone tikis in a certain way that you can throw a bubble bowl into the machine and get it stuck to where it generates those shiny objects perpetually, essentially, at a very fast rate. Much faster than any way we could generate them otherwise.
Yeah, it's a pretty precise position for the stone tikis because if they're too far out, then when the ball oscillates back and forth, it's not going to be able to go into the trigger, and if it's too far in, it's just going to be in the trigger even on both sides of the oscillation. So it's a pretty precise setup, but it's not too bad.
Yeah, it used to be this used to be a big swing point in races and just runs in general because it used to be a lot of people used to struggle a lot with this trick, but we've kind of found ways to make it a lot more consistent now. Not to say that we don't still struggle with it sometimes, but it's a lot more consistent than it used to be for sure.
Oh yeah, it used to be miserable. Now a new runner could definitely pick it up and start doing the trick for sure.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, so what's happening now is you can see we're generating these shiny objects very quickly. What we can do now is, as that's going, we can run around the pier and collect spatulas, which effectively makes them 0-second spatulas, because otherwise what we would be doing is we would just be standing still and waiting for these shinies to rack up. But by doing this, while we're kind of just killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, and you may wonder how many shiny objects we really need. It's around 40k in any percent because you got to be able to pay for all 8 crab spatulas, which is why this changes the route so much, is because you can get 8 really quick spatulas right off the bat, which takes out 8 from the original route. So Sea Needle is gone, stuff like that.
It's also nice because at 90%, you used to have to manage your shinies because you would have to pay Mr. Krabs at the end, and you would have to enter Guppy Mound. And some routes you had to enter what is the thing called?
Do you have enough?
The other one. Yeah, I had enough. I need 41,616. I just
Okay.
brain farted there.
Oh wait, yeah. Duh, my head was in hundo mode. Never mind. Ignore me.
Oh.
See, I always still get like 47 in any percent because I just kind of forget. Like, be like that. Then we go back to dream. Once we get the bubble bowl to do forbidden skip. Some people call it Gibby skip.
I didn't even get gibbied.
Yeah, this trick is kind of a troll. These spikes, they kind of look like they should just be one big rectangular hitbox, but they're not. Every spike has its own hitbox.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, and we have to hit there. Yeah, there's the Gibby.
It's like
we have to hit a certain spike in a certain way to give us a boost to get over to the spatula. We could also just walk around.
Oh no! I missed the spatula. I jumped.
Oh no!
One frame back up.
Yeah, you kind of need to reload in this case because you're not gonna have health. Oh, yeah, I guess this works too.
Alright. Honestly, I'm okay with that. If I was gonna mess up any trick, it's more exciting to mess up Gibby, I feel like.
True. No, for sure. Yeah, there is actually a faster way to do that trick, but it requires a one-frame input, and it saves about 4 to 5 seconds, but it is obviously a lot riskier. But as we can see, both versions of the trick are risky, so... Okay, so this is what you're seeing here is the main reason that we go through and get all those shiny objects from SBAs. There are 8 spatulas available to purchase from Mr. Krabs, and they cost 40,000 shinies, which is just completely out of the question for us to get that many shinies without that trick in an any percent run.
Yeah, 100% runs we're forced to get this shiny object. It would involve us grinding for 11 minutes in GlobalGiving.
Yeah, these spatulas used to be the #1 reason 100% was so excruciating. So this trick did revolutionize any percent, but even more so 100%, I would argue.
Oh yeah, 100%'s time went down even like a crazy amount from SBA.
Yeah, it saved like 10 minutes or something ridiculous. Compared to any percent where it saves about 3 minutes, I think. Alright, so headed into Mermalair. So this is a kind of interesting level in that it's the way most runners do it. It's pretty straightforward, not a lot of pretty basic, a lot of casual stuff. There is one trick that you can do that makes it a lot more difficult, but it's a route that only saves about like 7-ish seconds, I think. So it's kind of it's a very top level only kind of thing.
Yeah. One interesting thing about Mermalair though is that you get to see a lot of bowl tech introduced, such as like boosting your bowl, bowling the little buttons or the funnels. A lot of like bowling is used in Mermalair. I guess it was like sort of the tutorial level after you beat Poseidon.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so you're gonna start seeing Crawf1sh bowl do the bowl move when he walks into gates to open them. The reason for that is, as you can see, when you activate the bowl, SpongeBob gets a little boost forward. It's not viable for just moving around because he stops when he actually throws the bowl, but if you're just going into a gate and activating the trigger, then what you're effectively doing is you're taking advantage of that forward boost without actually losing time from having to stop at the end. So basically anywhere you can, you want to bowl into a gate or like a trigger like that to save a few frames, which really adds up over the run.
Yeah, and that's in contrast to like spatulas, because once you like bowl into a spatula, you still get the animation still plays out, and so you lose time by doing that. So it's better to just like walk into a spatula rather than for like an end level trigger or something like that. End level trigger. I'm thinking of Truth or Square right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this stuff right here is kind of fairly casual stuff with Patrick. There's unfortunately not really a faster way we can do this, but we kind of cheese the puzzles. They're supposed to be a little more complex than we make them.
This puzzle right here is my favorite thing because when I was a kid, I always thought this puzzle was like the most big brain thing ever. Would take like 500 IQ to find out, and I watched a speedrun and I realized you just hit the buttons all at once.
Yeah, you hit every button one time,
and
that's the solution.
Yeah. It's funny, we also used to do it with the melons too, which was intended, but then we found out the slams were really a second faster.
Yeah.
So most runners do the slam because they're smarter, so.
Yeah, true.
Hey, but Melon Gang is still alive and well.
For sure. There are still some Melon Gang reps. So this is, Crawf1sh just hit the first of 4 buttons, which we're going to hit over the course of this level. They're really not out of the way, and they give us a spatula at the end, so it's a really fast spatula to get while we're doing everything else.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a sequence break right there, because normally what you would have to do to be able to get into the prawn fight is like get up to the you basically have to shut down the computer system and by like hitting the buttons to activate walls to wall jump on. It's like it loses a ton of time to do it casually, but like if you can just jump to there from slide skip, you can save a ton of time, and then you go into security tunnel right after that.
Yeah, and you may be wondering what the fuck, or what did Crawf1sh just jump on? Excuse me. What did Crawf1sh just jump on? Because this game has a lot of invisible ledges.
Yeah, this game's geometry is really whack, because everything, if you can see it, you can probably stand on it.
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, if you can't see it, you can stand on it, as we just saw in security tunnel.
We'll be back to this room later. Not gonna spoil it.
Yeah, JVJ actually just recently made a video about the ballroom that I highly recommend anyone who's interested to watch.
Yeah, so that's a good example of how we route around the power-ups, which you'll see later in the game when we come back for that spatula, why we hold off on that one. Because even though we have to load back into the level, which loses a little bit of time, having that extra power-up makes that spatula significantly faster. Alright, so that's Mermalair. Now we're heading into Rock Bottom, I believe.
Yeah, Rock Bottom. Gonna be doing Bathroom Boost and Sleepy Skip.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's like a little bit of variation in like any percent routes. You could do Sand Mountain first or Rock Bottom. Both of those, like, they don't really like lose any time.
Well, I think you get the better block cycle if you do Rock Bottom first, because then when you warp back to do top of Shady Shoals on the way into Sand Mountain, it's
yeah, it's a free block cycle to make.
Yeah, whereas if you do Shady Shoals first, you have to wait a bit. Well, we would do Speedy Shoals in that case, but that's still a little slower.
Not sure why the hot sauce stopped me there.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Yeah, that was weird. Maybe you hit the ground before you hit the hot sauce.
I must have been, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, we come into Rock Bottom just to do a couple of quick damage boosts. Most of this level, this is another very big level, so we save it for later on when we do when we have cruise. Oh, that's not
really
something that happens a
Sleepy
lot.
Skip. I couldn't stop myself.
Do the Sleepy Skip off of the first guy. That's the real strat.
Yeah, turbo sleepy.
Rubber used to go for that back in the day.
Is that a
really
thing? Is that a real thing?
It was actually a real thing.
That's funny.
You actually have to take damage twice because I was on a bad damage animation. So if I would continue that animation, I would have most likely not gotten the spatula. There are like 5 different animations that SpongeBob has, and they go on a cycle. And so the one I got, I know like the net following one was going to be a bit longer, which makes the trick a lot harder.
Yeah, it basically makes the window for you to get that bash about 2 frames tighter, which it's already, I think, like a 7-ish frame window usually. So losing those 2 frames actually makes it like considerably. It gets a lot tighter then. It's still doable for sure, but like the time you lose taking the extra hit is like not very much at all. So you're better off just maximizing your chances of actually getting the damage boost. So this stage is the ultimate representation of the difference between any percent 100%, where it's one of the... Or go ahead, Crawf1sh.
No, yeah, this stage and Kelp Forest are so different in between 80% and 100%.
Because, like, this level has a lot of very difficult tech and movement in 100%, but the thing is, the spatulas here are so slow for the most part, that they aren't worth doing in any percent. So we just get 2 spatulas here that are like really the least interesting in the level, arguably. Well, I guess Guppy Mound's not that interesting
honestly,
either.
the bash up for top of the lodge is probably more interesting than
That's
Guppy
true.
Mound.
You're not wrong.
As a member of the Guppy Mound fan club, I'm just kidding. The sole member.
All right, so now that we have 40 spatulas, we're heading into the industrial park.
I forgot to get
level.
the sleepy sock. I think
Yeah, I was about to say. I think.
Yeah, probably gonna be shipwreck sock, right?
Shipwreck. Let me think. Yeah, probably shipwreck because you already get into museum, right?
I get in the museum, yeah.
Yeah, so probably just shipwreck is good.
Yeah, I was about to suggest the first sock in like kelp caves, but that would just be so slow.
Yeah, that's slower than shipwreck. That is still a very viable backup sock if you miss another one, though, the kelp caves one.
Without a doubt.
Just because, while it is a pretty slow sock, it's one of the fastest that late into the run, just because the later levels are so devoid of fast socks.
Would the inside falling building sock, would that actually be faster?
Probably not. That's a pretty big detour if you're just, especially if you're. Are you doing TGB or no?
No, you don't do TGB.
Yeah, so I would say that's probably a pretty big detour because you'd have to run around the whole thing and then turn around. Although I guess with the hand disabled, it's not as bad, but it's still
at that point.
great.
That's a really weird route, though. I don't want to.
Yeah, for sure. You have to kind of turn around awkwardly.
Yeah. As far as industrial park goes, which is like the level that we're in that Craw's in right now. You basically just have to hit like Patrick when he stops. It's kind of like just the same thing over and over again for phase 1 and 2, except in 2 you actually drop boxes by like going on these lassos. Yeah. But phase 3 you have to go on like certain parts of the conveyor belt to like manipulate where RoboPat will stop.
Yeah. This fight is not quite as excruciating as Poseidon because it does have a fair bit more strategy to it.
Oh yeah.
But it's still pretty long.
Like it's a minute longer, but it's definitely a lot more fun than Poseidon. Like phase 2, especially phase 3. Well,
yeah, phase 3 is cool. Phase 2 you can kind of swing around and look cool, which is fun.
Yeah. Although barely not dying at the end of phase 3 is always pretty hype.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and like even though you can't really control it in phase 2, like where Patrick lands actually does play a little bit into the time save, because like if he lands right in front of the crank thing that brings down the rest of the goo, then that like saves a lot of time rather than him having to like turn around and stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But that's something you can't really like control.
Yeah, it's like you could theoretically try to do conveyor belt manips in phase 2, but it's like it's very hard to manage that along with the boxes that like you're more often than not just gonna lose time trying to do it.
Yeah, I'm taking damage at the beginning of the fights there because or otherwise Patrick will have a phase where he just spits out goo for 30 seconds and that is slow, but instead of taking damage we'll cancel that immediately. Right there.
Yeah, and he does
setting up. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say he does like the taunt animation after he hits you, but that's still way faster than him doing the full goo attack.
Oh
so.
yeah.
So we just eat that time loss or time save overall, I guess.
Yeah, it's basically bowling ball skip in Super Mario World, but in battle.
Sure.
I don't know. It's a dumb analogy.
I just don't know what it's referring to. I'm sure it's a great analogy.
You notice me standing at those conveyor belts? It was like Jack was talking about earlier. That's hopefully getting Patrick to land in some good spots, which he's doing right now. He doesn't always do this, but it's not RNG, it's just a matter of the fact that it's really hard to stay in one spot on a conveyor belt.
Yeah, like we can control where he lands, but it's more precise than it looks, so it's very easy to make a slight mistake. And if he lands like very far away from you, it can lose like a lot of time.
Yeah. You're really lucky where he landed today, at least.
Dang,
Yeah,
those
for
are really,
sure.
really solid.
Really clean phase 3, yeah.
One thing that is worth mentioning though is like how easy it is for you to get hit by the goo that he's throwing out, especially like when you're coming from like the right side. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's always like really close.
Okay, so here, you heard us mention cruise boosting a few times. Well, you're going to see it in action quite a bit for the rest of the run. So you may have noticed Crawf1sh shot a couple of these missiles into the wall, which we'll explain kind of how that works. But basically what he's doing there is he's activating this cruise boosting tech, which effectively doubles our movement speed, which, as you can see, Crawf1sh is moving way faster than we have the entire run so far.
Basically, about twice as fast, because people used to do this little walk before cruise boosting existed, and it took so long. It took about a minute. This walk takes about 30 seconds with cruise boosting, which is so much better.
Yeah, this is the biggest reason why we save so much stuff in these early levels late game is because if we tried to do this stuff in Goo Lagoon without this cruise boosting tech, it would take a lot longer. Alright, that wasn't sketchy at all. Alright, so you're not...
I mean, that could have been worse. Really could have
No,
been.
for sure. For sure. You could have missed the spat.
Oh, missing the spat and trying to get it and backing up is the worst thing ever.
Yeah, I finally figured out if you're just patient with it, you can kind of circle back around and jump and put yourself in the same position you were in the first place. But it's you really don't want to have to do that.
It takes so long to even set that up, and then like earlier today, I got a double jump landing and drowned anyways, so it was like not even worth that time.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, so there's a spatula here that we can get pretty quickly with a lag clip, but it's a little difficult and kind of risky. Only saves not too much time in any percent, so we're gonna skip over it.
Only a little bit of time that requires you to do a really difficult spatula and prawn early. Do you put prawn a lot?
Well, you can do DTLC without prawn early.
Oh, you can
but
pick out Dutchman, but Dutchman's hype.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Since we're halfway through the run, I just want to like remind the viewers, if you want to donate to the coronavirus relief fund, just !donate. Very good
nice
cause.
Camera lock. So yeah, if you get the camera at the perfect angle there, then the cruise boost momentum actually carries you into the gate during the special animation. Yeah, I can never get that bowl. It's so tight.
I typically do get it, but I don't know. I missed it twice today, so.
Alright, so the rest of the stage is pretty straightforward, so I'll go ahead and explain kind of what's happening with this cruise boost tech. So you saw the bubble bowl move introduced earlier, and now we have this missile move called the cruise bubble. So what happens is if you go up against a flat surface and you activate both of those moves on the same frame, what happens is the bowling ball starts, which means you get that forward boost that we've been saying. You get that, but then the cruise bubble cancels the rest of the move, so that momentum is never actually resolved. So what happens is you just get permanent forward momentum stacked on top of SpongeBob, which then stacks on top of everything you do pretty much. So running, jumping, even if you're just standing still, the cruise boost movement or momentum will just push you forward.
Oh, actually, the best spot to back up with would be the sock by Over the Moat.
Is it?
Probably
is that faster than Shipwreck?
It's gotta be faster than Shipwreck.
Oh yeah, Castle Sock is fast in that situation.
Yeah. All right, we figured it out, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, and that like storage of momentum that you can get from cruise boosting can be like exploited for displacement cruise boosts or ledge canceled cruise boosts, where basically there's like certain like ledges in the game where if you go off of them, like the frame that you get zipped down, you can like store the momentum from that and get insane speeds. That's mainly used in like Sand Mountain and other levels, and
right.
DCBs for like swingerless, which is now used in the 100% record by Shift, or in the route. I forget if it's in the current record.
I don't think he's recorded it with it yet. I haven't watched the most recent though, but I feel like we would have heard about it if it happened.
that strat is whack. Like there's like
sure.
slide one frames. It's just like
Well, I don't think they're one frames. They're just kind of tight. Like they're sort of like the Ice Pillar Bash and Larry Slide, where it's not a one frame, but it's still like kind of tight movement. You have to slide off on the right part of the animation.
Yeah.
Because I think you can do the whole thing without a single one frame, or else that would just be like, I don't think anyone would would do it at that point. Okay, so this is a lag clip. We're gonna see a couple of these. There's kind of a lot going on with these, but one thing that the cruise bubble does is it gives you, when you activate it, it gives you intangibility. Which, if we force the game to lag, what happens is that intangibility lasts for extra frames, essentially, which allows us to go underneath the map. And in this case, it's kind of an interesting exploit, because there's actually a debug trigger underneath Mrs. Puff that when we grab it, it effectively tricks the game into thinking we have collected these 6 pieces of artwork, and then Mrs. Puff gives us a spatula for that, even though we have not actually collected a single piece of the artwork.
Yeah, and Rock Bottom's like the only example of like a collectible trigger. There are like end level triggers for boss fights, which you'll see later in the run, but that's like the only one of its kind that like you can just do that and not have to collect any art.
Right, and after they found that, they looked, they checked, they made sure that there were none others in the game. And sadly, that was the only one.
Triggers like under Squidward and Jellyfish Fields or Mrs. Puff and Rockbot and Downtown. But
yeah, that would be that would have been a pretty big game changer for sure.
Yeah, I just want to mention another donation we got. Dr. Fish just donated $10 cruise boosting to help cure COVID-19. Heart emoji. You are all awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Fish.
Yeah, Doc is a legend.
For sure. All right, so we're about to enter a really fun segment known as the Rock Bottom Museum. You see a lot of interesting sequence breaks in here. In particular, there's one very major skip we do where there's a laser wall at the beginning, which we phase through by actually grabbing onto a swinging tire as it goes through the laser wall. And what happens is, as SpongeBob is doing his ledge grab animation, he doesn't get like knocked back by the damage. So while you're, which you'll see how it works.
Ooh, that was close.
Yeah, that was a little sketch.
And that bash in general kind of sucks. Sometimes.
Yeah, so he kind of just phases through the laser wall because he's in that ledge grab animation. Which, although you do take damage from it, it doesn't stop you from passing through it. Yeah. And then you do a little runoff bash to get under the second laser wall.
Oh, and that kind of reminds me of another like mechanic that we use. Basically, like before some like platforms, we do a spin to reset our vertical momentum. Oh, BRC.
Yeah, let's actually. Yes, so this is the spatula we were telling you all about earlier. What Crawf1sh is trying to do, there it is. What Crawf1sh just did was what's known as an L-bowl. So although all you see coming out is the bowling ball, Crawf1sh is actually doing similar to a cruise boost, doing both that and the cruise bubble move on the same frame. Which while all you see is the bowl, what it actually does is it lets you bowl with intangibility on the first frame. And if you combine that... and I was just going to say, if you combine that with a good amount of speed, what that allows you to do is you actually just skip the collision on the cage entirely and clip inside.
Oh, yeah. I see so many people who will say, hey, why don't you guys do BRC in mid-game? I'll give it extra spatula.
Yeah, because, well, if you don't know what's happening, it just looks like people are just using the bowling ball, but that's not exactly. Yes.
Oh, yeah, and we were... Like basically what happened like right after BRC was prawn skip. So like what as like mentioned before, there's like triggers above the origin of each of the boss fights that like basically just end the level right there and bring you to like the cutscene after you defeat the boss. And you can do that in a lot of the fights.
Yeah, we'll see that done twice more. So there's so much going on in this run, it's kind of hard to explain everything. Yeah, so we're entering downtown now. So this level, this is effectively the reason we did all those sequence breaks at the beginning, is that having this level, saving this for when we have cruise boosting saves us a ton of time. Because as you're going to see, we cross some really big open spaces here, which would take forever without cruise boosting. And we used to have to do that, but since the discovery of SBA, that actually allowed us to move all of this into the late game. Which I...
Ooh.
Yeah,
that... a bit slow anyways. So.
That's kind of what it was looking like, yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be hard to make that regardless. Thankfully, the backup here is pretty quick. Doesn't lose too much time.
Yeah, it's a pretty sick backup, honestly.
Yeah, rooftops or just like downtown in general is pretty brutal if you have like a slow cruise boost.
Oh,
for sure.
Especially this upcoming part.
Yeah, like rooftops, Tiki's go boom. It's just like it's tough.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, this area we used to have to do with Sandy. Took a very long time because Sandy does not move as fast as SpongeBob. But not only does SpongeBob move much faster, but his speed allows him to make really big jumps that it would just be completely out of the question otherwise. Which not only allows us to move way faster through the area, but also just take a much faster route through the area in general, as you can see here. So we are not supposed to be over here under any circumstances, but for some reason these buildings have collisions, so there's nothing stopping us from.
Yeah, there are a few socks and like wheels in like the rest of rooftops, so there's a lot more that you're doing in like Hundo. The Hundo route for rooftops is really sick.
Yeah, for sure. And even then, doing it late saves so much time over doing it with Sandy, just because even though you can't take that like super like shortcut, super fast shortcut through the whole thing, it's like still going all the directions and getting all the things goes so much faster.
I saw those rainbow tubelets. Let's go.
It's sad that's all we see of it in any percent. You see a little bit more of it in 100 because of the crab stream. Alright, so this is Kelp Forest. We do this kind of like we did Goo Lagoon earlier, where we just do the whole thing in reverse. Saves a ton of time because we don't have to go through these long sections. We can just kind of jump in these boxes, skip over these long sections.
Yeah, because this is legit the end of the level. Like, this is the final thing that you do.
This is supposed to be the final thing that you do, but we do it as the first thing because we can. We're also going to see an exploit. As you've noticed, we've been really taking advantage of the warp, the taxi system, where we go into the menu and we select a spatula to take us to a certain area. That is similar to how we take advantage of the boxes to skip over levels, where by going straight to the end of this area, we can actually use that spatula to warp to the start of the area and skip it that way, even though we don't have a box.
Yeah, while cutscene's playing, we got another donation, $5.78 from Zach Ernst, saying, "Keep the number round, you heathens, Lamau," referencing the donation amount. Thank you for the donation.
Thanks. So yeah, there's another lag clip you can do here, but I think in any percent, it saves like I don't know, maybe 5 seconds or something.
It's not save a lot of
It's
time.
not that much.
Definitely not worth it in a marathon route.
Yeah,
it's not even worth it in a lot of regular routes too.
For sure, that's kind of something in any percent you don't really go for until you kind of need that time save. I feel like, or if you're just really good at it. But
yeah,
it is like of the main lag clips that we do, it's by far the least consistent. So it's
like ground pound. Let's go.
Oh, I always do that there. Like you have time, so why not make the pretty colors?
Yeah.
Alright, so we're coming up towards the end of the run now. So we're going to go back to Dream for one last spatula. This is a really fun segment.
Yeah, Squid Stream is like one of the craziest like movement-based levels in the game, I would say.
For sure. It's just, yeah, it's crazy to watch, and it's like, everything here is on a cycle, so if you're too slow, you kind of just can't do it properly. Oh, that was kind of sketched me out there.
Yeah. Were you like going for bounceless there?
I thought I needed to bounce. I definitely did not. But
yeah,
no,
Oh.
It's one of those borderline.
Honestly, I don't think the bounce is really, or like the going bounceless is really worth it half the time.
I
'Cause, like,
almost always bounce. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
rare that I don't. All right, so we're headed into the final level, or the final level before the final boss, I should say. Flying Dutchman's Graveyard. So this is actually one of the fastest levels in the game. I guess it is the fastest. We get all 8 spatulas here, but it doesn't even take 5 minutes optimally. It's a very movement-based level, just a lot of precise jumps. A lot of little optimizations you can do. So by hitting this this lid on this is going to lower the goo level, which is going to allow us to get the spatula over here.
Yeah, bit of foreshadowing in that cutscene.
Yeah, the spatula you actually saw in that cutscene. Funnily enough, we don't actually have to lower the goo for that one, but we're gonna come back for that one later. You'll see. That's a fun spat.
Hopefully fun.
Yeah, it's fun when it works.
It used to be even more fun when we didn't know lag clipping. Yeah, so that's just entrance area, apart from the other spatula. And then we just go and stack of ships.
Yeah, so as I said, this is a very fast level. We kind of just zoom through every area. Oh yeah, so Crawf1sh going for the cruise boost that saves a little over a second. Probably save time with it there, I'd say.
I think I either saved time or went even with it.
Yeah, because, well, I think a regular cruise boost saves a second, so an RCB saves a little more, I believe. Yeah, so there you want to walk into the clam's text very briefly, or else it's going to catch you as you're jumping away, which will make you fall. As most of us have learned the hard way. Oh no! Recovered it, nice. So that's a fun trick called
boat bash.
Yeah, it's a fun trick called boat bash. It's a little tricky because you can't really see the ledges you're jumping on, but it does save a pretty good amount of time, so it's
Thankfully,
worth
if you
going.
miss it doesn't use a lot of time. You basically do the other method as the backup.
Right, going for it and missing it only loses like 2 or 3 seconds over not attempting it at all, I'd say, if that, honestly.
Yeah, and then this is just cannons, basically just like hit the 4 cannons, and then a treasure chest opens, hit the button, and then like the destroy the robot ship appears. And there's a really weird like property where if you hit the button to activate the cannons, it actually opens up the warp to defeat the Flying Dutchman, even though you didn't actually destroy the other ship. So
Well, it's also ridiculous because the spatula that Crawf1sh just collected is called Destroy the Robot Ship, even though no destroying of the robot ship has been done.
See,
It's
these
a bit of an over.
prevent me from even destroying it, and yet for whatever reason, we just kind of continue on like nothing happened.
Yeah, so it's a bit of an oversight, I would say, but you know, we take advantage of it, just like everything else.
we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And then get aloft is just kind of there.
Yeah. So this is another one of the boss skip triggers that Jack mentioned earlier, where we do some fancy cruise boosting movement to get up on top of this ship, and we jump into the trigger to effectively trick the game into thinking we have fought the Flying Dutchman when we have not. Which saves a lot of time because the Dutchman fight is very, very slow. I mean, if we didn't have the skip, we just wouldn't do the spatula in any percent, basically. It wouldn't even be close to viable.
Probably a slower boss fight than Robo-Sponge, casually.
Oh, yeah. Well, Robo-Sponge you could do in under a minute if you get the no damage cycle, but it's a little tricky. Alright, so here is the last lag clip of the run. It is usually one of the easiest and most consistent, but sometimes it can be a little finicky.
Hey, let's go.
I'll take that.
Not bad. Respectable, for sure.
Yeah, while we're giving the socks to Patrick. Another donation, $10 from Triple X Gamer. F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me, and N is for no COVID-19. Thank you for the donation.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so these socks we've been collecting, we didn't really talk about them too much, but basically you trade 10 of them into Patrick for a spatula. There are 8 of them available, but most of the socks in the game are very, very slow, so we only get 20 of them. Before SBA, we actually got 3 of them, or 30 socks, but with SBA, one of the spats we were able to cut was that 3rd Patrick spatula.
This is the best end level trigger in the game.
Yeah, it's fun. It's pretty funny to watch. Oh no.
Like sometimes trolls you like that.
Yeah.
And
I guess SpongeBob won't be winning that way.
Yeah, so this jump, it can be pretty tough to hit at the end of a run because you're under a lot of pressure, and it's not like frame precise or even like 2 frames, but it's tight enough that under pressure it can be very tricky. So yeah, there are a couple different ways you can do this. This is the very last boss fight. There are a couple different ways we can do it. What Craw's going for now is what's called fast brain. It's just the fastest way to do it. This jump at the beginning is really tight. Yeah, there you go.
oh, damn it.
Oh no!
Ooh.
I heard you say that before I saw it. I was like, I know what happened.
We've all done it before.
So there is a much easier way to do this, but it loses about close to 15 seconds. So while it's a good strat for beginners and mid-level players, after a certain level you kind of want to start doing this strat. Even if it loses you time sometimes, it's good to, like, that time save is worth it if you can get it consistently. Also just looks sick.
Oh yeah, it's super fun.
Oh, the
to do.
bash. Let's go. I get the bash.
Oh, there we go. There's the timer.
55,
Alright.
56.
Not bad.
Yeah.
That's a really good no reset.
Yeah, that was
for sure.
That was about like 40 minutes away, 40 seconds, excuse me, away from my PB.
40 minutes. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. I thought you had a 54 for some reason.
Yeah, I thought you were actually gonna get it.
Yeah, no, that was very close to
It was
PB,
really
that's
close. Especially, like if I got in first try fast brain, it would have probably been within a couple seconds.
for sure.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, Gibby and Sleepy Skip in mid game probably ruined it.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, it's still good to see. Like, that gives you a good idea what kind of times you're capable of.
Oh, 100%.
So, yeah, very good. Not bad. So yeah, that's a BFBB any percent. If you thought that was cool, you should definitely check out More Runs. Shift, of course, is our most prominent streamer. He streams daily.
Yeah. He actually just made a tutorial for new runners to walk out. It's a really good tutorial. I wish I had resources like it when I was starting out.
Yeah,
Definitely
for
check
sure.
it
This
out.
game, yeah, this game is more accessible than it's ever been. So if you thought this was cool and you're interested in learning, definitely check out the tutorial. Feel free to join our Discord. You can find the link on speedrun.com and all that.
And also, we now have a website, bfbb.site. It has like all the information for like stuff like strats, the individual levels, tutorials, bingo. Gotta love battle bingo.
Bingo.
For sure. Oh, it is also worth noting that if you're wondering what console you can play on, the fastest console is Xbox, but you can play on GameCube, and the Dolphin emulator is allowed for the leaderboards. So, if that's your only available option, don't let that discourage you, because that it's very easy to get into this game if you have access to that. So.
Well, thank you GSA for letting us do this run here. Big shout outs.
Oh yeah, for sure. Very fun.
And since we're still up, I just want to remind everyone of the charity. If you want to donate, ! Donate to Coronavirus Relief Fund. So I forgot that in the outro. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having us.